I stood by the fence, watching her trim the rose bushes, the morning sun glinting off her silver hair streaked with faint golden strands. Evelyn, my neighbor, 58, was beautiful in a timeless way, like a painting that never fades. I didn't mean if you'd say anything, but something pulled the words out of me. You'd make an amazing wife. She looked up, her deep blue eyes flashing, and said, "Too bad you hesitated." Her words hit like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples through my chest. Could I dare to cross the invisible line between us? I'm not sure what made me say it. Maybe it was the early sunlight, warm and golden, making the world feel freshly washed. Or maybe it was the birds chirping in the yard, mingling with the soft clink of wind chimes from her porch, whispering some secret. But if I'm honest, it was probably Evelyn. That woman, with her loosely pinned up hair, expensive gardening gloves, and eyes that seemed to own not just her house but the whole street. I'm Jake, 22, with a beat-up car, student loans, and a lawnmower that works when it feels like it. I've got nothing but a few bad jokes and a safe distance I've kept between us. Evelyn, 58, wealthy, magnetic, and completely out of my league. But lately, that distance feels like it's shrinking. Last week, when my lawnmower coughed out smoke in the middle of my yard, Evelyn appeared with a glass of iced lemonade. She handed it to me with a smile that made me feel bigger than I am. I gave her back the empty glass, and she looked at me, like she was waiting for something. I just nodded, said thanks, and turned away, but her gaze followed me for 3 days. It was a Sunday morning. The sky clear, the air carrying the scent of fresh earth and cut grass. I stepped outside with a bag of grass seed, though I wasn't planning to plant anything. I just needed an excuse to be out there, to glance over the old wooden fence where Evelyn was tending her roses. She wore a white linen shirt over yoga pants, elegant yet approachable. The pruning shears in her hand gleamed in the sun, like they knew they belonged to someone special. I stood there, seed bag in hand, searching for something to say to break the quiet. "Your garden's looking amazing," I said, my voice a little awkward. Evelyn looked up, a strand of hair falling across her forehead. She tucked it behind her ear, smiling faintly. "Thanks, Jake. But I'm guessing you didn't come out here just to compliment my yard." Her voice was low, with a playful edge, like she'd seen through me from the start. I scratched the back of my neck, grinning. Maybe I just wanted to see how you make your lawn look better than mine." She laughed, a clear bell-like sound that rang like her wind chimes. "You'll need more than a bag of seeds to pull that off." She pointed at the bag in my hand, her eyes sparkling. I held it up like it was my defense. "I'm trying, but I might need some pointers from you." Evelyn tilted her head, looking at me a moment longer, like she was weighing something. "You know, gardening's a lot like life. It takes patience, but you also have to know when to act." Her words, gentle but sharp, caught me off guard. I didn't know how to respond, so I just stood there, smiling like an idiot. And then, like someone pushed me, I blurted out, "You'd make an amazing wife." Time froze. Evelyn paused, her shears lowering, and she looked at me. Not angry, not surprised, but with a deep, searching gaze, like she was reading every tangled thought in my head. "Too bad you hesitated," she said, her voice even but heavy with something I couldn't name. I stood there, the seed bag weighing down my hand. What had I expected? A smile, a witty comeback, a wave of her hand. But her words hit me somewhere I didn't know existed. I wanted to say something to fix it, but my throat tightened. Evelyn didn't wait for me to respond. She turned back to her roses, resuming her work. But the corner of her mouth curved like she knew something I didn't. We stood there, each on our side of the fence, in silence. I watched her, the way she cared for each rose, the way the sunlight caught her silver hair. I wondered if I was hesitating. I didn't know. But one thing I was sure of. Her words, her look, had changed something in me, like a door had cracked open, and I wasn't sure where it led. "So, what are you planting with those seeds?" Evelyn asked suddenly, her voice light, pulling me from my thoughts. I blinked, looking down at the bag. Probably grass. Or something that won't die in a week." She laughed, louder this time, and straightened up, wiping her hands on a small towel. "Start with something easy, like dandelions. They don't need you to be perfect." I nodded, fighting a grin. "So, you're the dandelion expert now?" Evelyn raised an eyebrow, stepping closer to the fence. "I'm an expert in things that survive, Jake." My heart beat faster, not just from her words but from the way she looked at me like she saw me, really saw me. Not just the kid next door with a busted lawnmower. I wanted to say more, to keep the moment going. But Evelyn turned back, picking up a fallen rose petal, holding it gently like a keepsake. "You should get to planting," she said, not looking at me. "Don't let those seeds wait too long." I nodded, though she didn't see, and headed back to my yard. The seed bag felt heavier, like it carried all the things I hadn't dared to say. When I stepped inside, the sun was still shining, the wind chimes still clinking, but something in me had shifted. Evelyn wasn't just my neighbor anymore. She was a question, a challenge, and maybe an answer I wasn't ready to understand. Asterisk after that moment by the fence, I couldn't stop thinking about Evelyn. Her words, "Too bad you hesitated," echoed in my head like a song stuck on repeat. I kept asking myself what I'd hesitated on. But the next day I found myself back in the yard, pretending to tinker with my lawnmower, my eyes drifting to her side of the fence. Evelyn wasn't there, just her roses blazing red under the noon sun, reminding me she was still out there, close but out of reach. The day after, I decided to do something. Nothing big, just an impulse. When I passed the corner store, I bought a small bouquet of daisies, cheap but bright, thinking they'd give me an excuse to talk. I knocked on Evelyn's door, my heart pounding like I was a kid asking someone to prom. She opened the door, wearing a thin sweater, her hair loose, those blue eyes looking at me with a hint of surprise. "Jake, everything okay?" I held up the flowers. "Awkward, saw these at the store. Figured you like flowers. So, here." Evelyn smiled, not a polite smile, but a real one, the kind that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "You know, daisies are the hardiest flowers, thank you." Her fingers brushed mine as she took the bouquet, and I felt a small jolt, like static. "Electricity." "Come in," she asked, stepping aside. I nodded, stepping into her house, which smelled of cinnamon and a hint of jasmine. Her place didn't feel like a 58-year-old's home, at least not what I'd imagined. It was neat but cozy, with soft light streaming through the windows. A faint jazz record playing somewhere, its notes smooth like a whisper. I sat on her old couch, feeling a little out of place in her elegant space. "Coffee," Evelyn called. From the kitchen, I nodded, watching her grab 2 ceramic mugs from a cabinet. "No sugar, right?" I grinned. "How'd you know?" She glanced over, a playful glint in her eye. "You don't strike me as a sweet-tooth guy." I laughed, the tension easing. We sat at a small table by the window, sunlight turning the coffee in our mugs amber. "You've been out in the yard a lot lately," she said, sipping her coffee. I shrugged. "Guess I like looking at your garden. Makes my yard look like a junk heap." She laughed, that clear chime-like sound. "Don't sell yourself short. Your yard just needs some love." "Like you," I froze. "What do you mean?" Evelyn set her mug down, her gaze steady. "I mean, you seem like you're searching for something but don't know how to start." I didn't know what to say. She had a way of making me feel seen through. "Maybe," I said quietly. "What about you? You seem like you've got it all figured out." Evelyn shook her head, her eyes briefly clouded. "Nobody has it all figured out, Jake. But I've learned to live with what I've got." She looked out the window, where her roses swayed in the breeze. "My husband taught me that. He passed 15 years ago. Heart attack, during a storm. Since then, I've been on my own." I swallowed, feeling like I'd touched an old wound. "I'm sorry," I said. Evelyn smiled, soft but sad. "Don't be. Life goes on, right? It just leaves gaps sometimes." I nodded, unsure what to add. The silence wasn't awkward, it felt like a shared moment, like she'd let me glimpse something private. "Do you ever think about starting over?" I asked, my voice shaky. Evelyn looked at me, her gaze searching. "I do, but not the way you might think. Starting over isn't about erasing the past. It's finding a way to keep living, to keep laughing." She paused, then added softly, "Like the way you make me laugh." My face warmed. "I don't try to make you laugh, it just happens." Evelyn tilted her head, her smile returning. "That's what makes you special, Jake. You don't try. You just are." I sat there, clutching my coffee, feeling like the world had shrunk to this table later. She stood grabbing a plate and slicing 2 pieces of apple pie from the oven. "Try this. I didn't bake it, but I warmed it up, so I get some credit." I laughed, taking a bite. The pie was so sweet I winced. "Wow, that's intense." Evelyn burst out laughing louder, freer. "Too sweet for you, huh? Then this coffee's perfect for you." She nudged my mug closer, her garden, the weather, how my lawnmower always broke at the worst times. But beneath the words, something deeper stirred. Every laugh, every glance, pulled me closer to a line I'd never dared cross. I wasn't sure what it was, but I knew I didn't want to go back. When I got up to leave, Evelyn walked me to the door. "Thanks for the flowers, Jake," she said, holding the daisies, her eyes soft. "Keep them safe," I said, trying to sound casual. "I might come back for them." She smiled, nodding. "I'll be waiting." I walked home, my heart light but tangled. Evelyn wasn't just my neighbor anymore. She was a big question, something bigger than me, and I couldn't stop wanting to know more. I glanced back at her house, saw her standing there, holding the flowers, the sunlight painting her like a living portrait, and I knew, no matter how much I hesitated, I wasn't going to stop. I sat on my couch, the late afternoon light slipping through the blinds, casting gold across my small living room. The daisies I'd given Evelyn lingered in my mind, along with her smile when she took them. But that soft, warm moment was now overshadowed by unease. I wasn't sure what I was doing, only that every time I talked to Evelyn, I felt clearer and more lost at the same time. A knock at the door snapped me out of it. I opened it to find my mom, holding a steaming apple pie, wearing her familiar knit cardigan, her curly hair streaked with gray. "Jake, you're looking thin," she said, stepping inside without an invite. "That's Mom always showing up like she's got a radar for when I need checking on." I brought pie. "What do you eat besides frozen pizza?" I laughed, closing the door. Salad's mom. Sometimes she peeked into my fridge, grimacing at an expired milk carton. Unbelievable. Do I need to start cooking for you? I didn't answer, just helped her set the pie on the counter. But my mind was still in Evelyn's kitchen, hearing her laugh, feeling her hand brush mine. Mom turned, her eyes sharp as ever. She always knew when I was hiding something. What's that on the chair? She asked, pointing at a pale blue scarf draped over the back. My stomach dropped. It was Evelyn's. Last night, she'd sat on my porch, talking late into the evening. She laughed about the first time she planted roses, then left the scarf behind. I picked it up, meaning to return it, but hadn't yet. Just a scarf, I said, grabbing it, trying to play it cool. Probably blew over from the fence. Mom's eyes narrowed. Blew over. In July, with no wind. I shrugged, forcing a smile. Maybe she didn't push, but I could feel her piecing things together. I'd been quieter lately, slow to text back, and Mom, like all moms, sensed the shift. We ate dinner, microwave lasagna, not my finest meal. Afterward, Mom sat sipping tea, her eyes never leaving me. I scrolled my phone, pretending to be busy. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. You seeing someone, Jake? I looked up, caught off guard. No, not really. She raised an eyebrow, a half smile forming. You hesitated. That word again, hesitated, echoing Evelyn. Now, coming from Mom, I sighed, knowing I couldn't hide forever. It's not dating. Just someone. Mom tilted her head, curiosity turning to concern. Who is she? I stared at the table. Evelyn's image, flashing silver hair, blue eyes, that smile that made the world fade. She's special, I said quietly. Mom frowned. She's older than you, isn't she? I nodded, feeling like I was walking a tightrope. How much older? I took a deep breath, meeting her eyes. She's 58. Mom blinked twice, like her brain was processing. 58, she repeated, her voice rising slightly. Older than me? I nodded, holding her gaze. The silence stretched, heavy. Mom set her tea down, her fingers tightening around the handle. She's the neighbor, isn't she? The one who left the scarf. I didn't deny it. Yeah, her name's Evelyn. Mom looked out the window, her gaze distant. Jake, I love you. You know that. I'll always support you, but… She paused, the butt hanging like a door about to close. Don't you think this is complicated? I leaned back, feeling cornered. It's not complicated when I'm with her, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She makes me feel real, like I don't have to pretend to be someone else. Mom's eyes softened, not with anger but with a quiet fear. She's lived a whole life, Jake, she said softly. You're just starting yours. Her words hit me, not because they were wrong, but because they were true. Evelyn had been through things I couldn't imagine: love, loss, years of picking herself up. Me, I was still wrestling with student loans and a foggy future. But when I was with Evelyn, none of that mattered. I wanted to tell Mom that, but my throat tightened. Mom stood, hugging me tightly before leaving, kissing my cheek twice, harder than usual. She didn't mention the scarf or Evelyn again, but her silence said everything. I sat on my porch, watching her taillights disappear down the street. The night settled in, cool and quiet, and I felt more alone than ever. Then I heard soft footsteps, beyond the fence. Evelyn stood there, a thin jacket wrapped around her, her eyes gentle but knowing. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, she said quietly, but I saw your mom come by. I stepped to the fence. You're not trouble, I said. Mom's just being Mom. Evelyn nodded, but her eyes held a trace of sadness. I can step back, Jake, if this is too hard. Her words cut like a small knife. No, I said, sharper than I meant. I don't want you to step back. She looked at me long enough that my heart pounded. You don't owe me anything, she said. Not explanations, not protection. I've lived long enough to not be anyone's problem. I moved closer, the fence just a physical barrier now. You're not a problem, I said firmly. You're the first thing that's made sense to me. Evelyn didn't answer right away, just looked at me, her gaze searching. Then she smiled, a sad but warm smile. You should go inside, she said. It's getting cold. I nodded, but neither of us moved. The night was still, just crickets and the flickering of her porch light. I stood there, thinking of Mom, of Evelyn, of myself. And for the first time, I realized hesitation wasn't just fear. It was the worry of losing something important before I could understand what it was. I sat on my couch, leftover Chinese takeout on the coffee table, the old TV flickering with a baseball game. I wasn't really watching. Outside the sky darkened, clouds rolling in heavy like a warning. Then, as if the heavens snapped, lightning cracked across the sky, bright and jagged, followed by thunder that shook the windows. The lights flickered, then went out. Everything plunged into darkness. I blinked, adjusting to the dimness, racking my brain for where I'd left the flashlight. My phone buzzed a text from Evelyn. Power out at your place. I typed back fast. Yeah, whole street. A pause, then her reply. My generator's not working. Think it's flooded. Without thinking, I texted, want me to check? It 3 dots blinked, then, if it's not too much trouble. I grabbed a hoodie and flashlight, stepping outside. Rain poured like a waterfall, cold and soaking me in seconds. Evelyn's house was just a few steps away, but I was drenched. By the time I reached her door, she opened it before I could knock, standing in the glow of a single candle, wearing an oversized navy sweater. Her hair was damp, probably from checking the generator. "You're soaked," she said, worry in her voice, stepping aside. "You look like you knew I was coming," I said, trying to grin through the awkwardness. She met my eyes, a soft glint in hers. I did. I stepped inside. The warmth of her house, a stark contrast to the storm outside. The candlelight softened. Everything, like time, had slowed. She handed me a towel, the faint scent of jasmine lingering. "I tried starting the generator," she said, nodding toward the backyard. It sounded like it was about to explode. "Let me take a look," I said, grabbing the flashlight. "Where's the key?" She pointed to a drawer by the sink. "In there." I headed out, rain lashing my face, wind howling like it wanted to swallow me. The generator sat under a top, but water had gotten in. I knelt, my hoodie sticking to me, checking wires and buttons. A loose connection, probably the issue. I fumbled, hands numb, nearly slipping on the wet ground. After 10 minutes of wrestling, and a few muttered curses, the generator roared to life, and her house lit up. I came back, dripping on her kitchen floor. Evelyn stood there, holding 2 mugs of hot tea and a dry shirt mine. One I'd left last week when I helped her carry groceries. "Thought you'd need this," she said, handing me a mug. "Generator's running. You're good." I took the tea, warmth spreading through my hands, but my eyes stayed on her. She sat at the table, looking smaller than usual, her gaze distant. "You okay?" I asked softly. She looked at me long enough that I thought she wouldn't answer. "Then," she said, her voice quiet, "I hate storms." I was surprised. Evelyn, who seemed fearless, looked fragile as the candle before her. "I used to love them," she went on, staring at her tea. "When I was with my husband, we'd sit on the porch, watching the lightning. He'd make up dumb stories about thunder gods or jealous clouds." She smiled, but it was brittle, like a keepsake, her voice steady but trembling. "In his sleep. Heart attack. It was storming that night, like this." I gripped my mug, the air growing heavier. Evelyn didn't cry, but her voice shook, like she was holding something back. "I walk through this house like a stranger," she whispered. "Everything's the same, but I'm not in it anymore, like I'm watching my life from the outside." I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, letting her words hang between us, like smoke from the candle. "I've been alone for 15 years, she continued. "I throw parties, go on dates, travel. People call me independent, but I've hated every storm since that night." Her eyes glistened in the candlelight. "I don't want to be alone tonight." My chest tightened. Without thinking, I stood, walked around the table, and placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. She grabbed my hand, squeezing so hard I felt her pulse through her fingertips. We stood there, silent, just the rain roaring outside and our breaths mingling. "I'm not going anywhere," I said, my voice low but steady. Evelyn leaned her head against my chest, not as a lover, not as a friend, but as a woman tired of being strong. I stood there, a 22-year-old kid who didn't understand everything but knew enough to know silence sometimes says more than words. "I miss him," she whispered. "I know," I said. "And I hate that I don't always miss him." "That's okay," I said softly. "He'd be proud you're still living, still finding moments to smile, still letting someone in." A single tear rolled down her cheek, then stopped. I realized something in that moment. It wasn't Evelyn's beauty or strength that drew me. It was her courage to keep going, to hurt, to still open her heart. The lights came on, the generator humming. Light flooded the room, but we didn't move. Evelyn pulled back slowly, her hand still touching mine. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for staying." I nodded. "Anytime you need me." When I walked home, rain still falling, my shoes squelching with every step, something in me had shifted, like a lock clicking open. This wasn't a crush. It was 2 people, from 2 different worlds, standing together in a quiet moment, no words needed. And I knew, rain or not, I'd always be ready to cross that fence for her. My birthday was always the same routine. Friends. It showed up with pizza, cheesy cards, and boring talk about my future. They came, they left, and I always felt like an actor in a play no one really got. But this year, as I blew out the candles on the apple pie Mom brought, there was only one person I wanted at my door, Evelyn. I didn't invite her, didn't dare hope, but deep down, I knew I was waiting at 7 p.m. The sunset glowed through the pine trees, painting the street gold. A soft knock came. I opened the door, and there was Evelyn, in a simple green dress, high neckline, her silver hair neatly tied, lips slightly pink. She held a small box, wrapped in plain brown paper. "No ribbon," she said, smiling, "didn't want to overdo it." I laughed, my heart racing. "You already did." She stepped inside, and I closed the door, feeling like I'd crossed an invisible line. Old acoustic music played from my speakers, the air scented with pie and candles. We sat on the couch, and I opened the gift. Inside was an old film camera, heavy, worn with time. "It was my husband's," Evelyn said. her voice low. He photographed everything, receipts, broken lamps, me brushing my teeth. He believed the ordinary was worth keeping. I held the camera, feeling its weight, not just physical but emotional. I want you to have it, she said, because you see things and I think you'll see more if you let yourself. I looked up, speechless. Thank you, I whispered, for trusting me with something so precious to him. Evelyn's eyes softened. He was important to me. But you make me feel important too. Her words, honest and simple, felt like a heartbeat between us. I wanted to respond, to tell her she mattered to me, but the doorbell rang, cutting me off. My stomach sank. I knew who it was. I opened the door, and there was Rachel, my ex, curly hair, expensive coat, a fake casual smile. Happy birthday, she said, holding up a bottle of wine. I was visiting my cousin, heard it was your day. Rachel, what are you doing here? I asked, my voice tight. She glanced past me, spotting the camera box, the candles, Evelyn on the couch. Oh, she said, her smile fading. Evelyn stood, graceful as always, even in the awkwardness. I should go, she said softly. No, wait, I started, but she was already at the door, nodding politely to Rachel. As she passed me, she whispered, Happy birthday, Jake. Then she was gone. Rachel stepped inside, acting like nothing happened. That your neighbor? She asked, her curiosity fake. She looks young for her age. I turned, my eyes hard. She's not a joke, Rachel. She raised an eyebrow, setting the wine down. I didn't say that, but, Jake, really, someone, that old. My fists clenched. What do you want? Rachel shrugged. To talk. We ended things messy, and I thought, maybe we could try again. I cut her off. Try again? You think we can just pick up where we left off? My voice was sharper than I meant. She's not a fantasy, Rachel. She listens to me, sees me, doesn't treat me like a backup plan. Rachel opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at me, like she was seeing someone new. She looks at you like she wants to protect you, she said quietly. But what happens when she realizes you don't need protecting? I didn't hesitate. I hope I'm still there when she does. Rachel left without another word. The door closed, and the house felt cold. I picked up the camera, feeling sousing it still held Evelyn's warmth. I stepped outside. The night cool, her house dark, curtains drawn. I knew she wouldn't answer, not tonight. But I sat on her porch steps, not caring if the neighbors saw or if the air chilled me, because when something's real, you show up, late or not, rain or not, even if someone's already said goodbye. 2 days later, I still hadn't knocked. Every time I stepped into my yard, glancing over the fence, her house was quiet. I held the camera, turning it over, like it could tell me what to do. I thought of Rachel, of Mom, of how the world seemed to want me in a safe, familiar place. But Evelyn was where I wanted to be, safe or not. On the third day, her car was gone, her house dark. A flicker of fear hit me as she left. I crossed the fence, stood at her door. Her porch light flicked on, like a sign. I took a deep breath and knocked. Evelyn opened the door. No makeup, hair loose, in a baggy gray sweater. She looked tired but still carried that unshakable grace. We didn't speak. She stepped aside, and I walked in. The familiar scent of jasmine and lemon oil wrapped around me. We sat at her kitchen table, 2 glasses of water between us, the silence heavy. I'm sorry, I said, breaking it, for letting Rachel hurt you. Evelyn's eyes, gentle but sharp, met mine. I don't need you to protect me, Jake, but I also don't need you to act like I'm not here. I never did, I said firmly. You're real to me. She stood, pouring a glass of water, her movements slow. I almost left, she said, turning back. I packed a bag, called my sister. Why didn't you go? I asked. She stepped closer, her eyes locked on mine. Because it wasn't the storm, or your mom, or that girl that scared me. It was what you didn't say, what you didn't choose. I stood, closing the distance. I'm choosing now, I said. I meant it, when I said you'd be an amazing wife. I want you not because it's easy, not to prove anything, but because you make me feel like myself. That's everything. Evelyn looked at me, searching for truth. She stepped closer, and I saw the flecks of green in her blue eyes, the curve of her collarbone under her sweater, a tired spark of hope. Too bad you hesitated, she whispered, but this time there was no edge, just softness. I smiled. Not anymore. She placed her hand on my chest, warm, steady. No, she said, you're not. The clock ticked. The sunset outside faded into warm gold. I didn't kiss her. She didn't ask. Some stories don't need a kiss to end. Just 2 people in a kitchen, telling the truth, holding hands, watching the light fade through the window. And that was enough. More than enough. Jake and Evelyn stood in her kitchen. The scent of jasmine in the air. The sunset casting a golden glow over them. No kiss, no grand promises. Just 2 people from different worlds, finding each other in honest moments. I'm not hesitating anymore, Jake said, his hand tight in hers. She smiled, her eyes bright like the sky after a storm. No, she whispered, you're not. The clock ticked, but time seemed to pause. Just them, and the simple truth that sometimes connection doesn't need a name, it just needs to be. This story of Jake and Evelyn reminds us that love, connection, or just understanding isn't bound by age, judgment, or the fences we build. They chose to face their fears, to speak their truth, to choose each other, even if just for a moment. So what about you? Have you ever hesitated before something that mattered? A word left unsaid, a step not taken. This is Hidden Tales, where buried stories come to light, where hearts are heard. If this moved you, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and drop a comment. How would you choose to push past hesitation? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more stories that inspire. Join us in uncovering the secrets of the heart, one tale at a time.